So last week we previewed Octopath Traveler 2 and took a look at the first chapter for each character that came out in it. Well, now it's time to take a look at the whole game and see whether it's a worthy successor to Octopath Traveler as the early chapters would suggest, or whether it starts to peter out as you play through the game. So if you'd like to know more about Octopath Traveler 2 and ultimately whether it's worth your money or not, then stay tuned and keep on watching. So a quick shout out goes out to Square Enix for gifting me a copy of Octopath Traveler 2 so that I can bring you guys this review. And I'm not going to dwell too heavily on the early portions of the game, because if you want to know more about that, you can quite happily go back and watch my preview video that I posted last time so that you guys can get an impression of what you can expect from the demo that's been released. Though I will say that the demo hadn't come out by the time I was filming that video, so if you want to check out the demo, it's all available on PlayStation 4 and on Nintendo Switch as well. So if you wanted to go and check the demo, I heavily encourage you to do so that you can draw your own conclusions rather than take a review at face value. So continuing on from that video, I've experienced a lot more of the game now, so I have a lot more of a rounded view on what goes on in it. And I have to say, I've been thoroughly impressed with pretty much everything that I've played with Octopath Traveler 2. Now, I maintain my opinion from the preview where if you tried Octopath Traveler 1 and you weren't really into it, it wasn't really your thing, then Octopath Traveler 2 isn't magically going to make you love Octopath Traveler as a franchise. However, if, like me, you played through Octopath Traveler 1 and loved it, there's a ton to love about Octopath Traveler 2, and in all honesty, there are very few things in this game, if any, that I can think of that doesn't take what Octopath Traveler 1 did and just make it better in every way. Before we continue, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord and Patreon. You can find me streaming 4 to 5 days a week, every week, over on Twitch, and we're playing all sorts of Final Fantasy games as well as other RPGs, and sometimes we throw some wild cards in there as well. We've actually just finished Final Fantasy 12 and we're moving on to a big stream for FF13, so you've got that to look forward to. And then of course Theatrhythm, Final Barley, all sorts of different things going on there, so definitely come and find me over on Twitch. And then on Patreon, I do always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a brand new video, and today that person is going to be Striking, who has Riku as their title card, and a massive thank you for being one of my long-time supporters. It really does mean the world to me. And for all of you guys over on Patreon, thank you so much. And if you're interested in getting a title card made for yourself, as well as a plethora of other benefits, perhaps you'd like to consider supporting the channel and clicking on the link for Patreon in the description box below too. First things first, the characters. I'm going to talk about the characters because I've got spent a lot more time with them now, and I can talk about who my favourites are and perhaps why they are. The character art in this game is absolutely stunning, not to mention the HD 2D graphics. You've heard me gush about these before, but I really love this art style and visual representation of a JRPG, and I hope that more games adopt this style, because what makes it so lovely for me, as someone who's a little bit older playing these games, it's nice to kind of see these games like how my mind's eye pictured them back when I was 10 years old playing Final Fantasy VI. It's exactly what I want a game like that to look like. Oh my god, wouldn't a Final Fantasy VI remake in this style be amazing? Anyway, like, getting off the beaten path, talking about the characters, I found that I loved all 8 of the playable characters within Octopath Traveler 2. I thought that the way they're juxtaposed well with their original counterparts, because while the jobs are the same for each character as they were in the first game, the characters could not be more different. For example, you have Agnia, the dancer, who is much more naive and a lot less jaded than Primrose was in the first game, and her story's actually really lovely, just kind of seeing her go through these trials and tribulations, being almost unaware of how much power she has. And I chose to pick Ochette, the hunter, as my protagonist because I really liked the way that the hunter played in the first game, Hanit, and I wanted to try out and see how different it was in this game. And it is fairly different. Latent powers, which are abilities that each character has that is specific to them and changes the way you play quite significantly, add a layer of depth to each character that you wouldn't have gotten from the first game. Combining that with EX skills, which you can find at various statues, are meant for that character rather than the job they carry, so that it's gives more gravity to each character that you choose for your party and makes them feel more individual, even though there is a lot of customization options with the job system that's available. I also found that even the characters that I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I do actually became some of my favourites. Like Particio, the merchant in this game, was a character I looked at and I thought, oh, you know, he's kind of got this like cheesy grin, like, and he's very not my kind of character. But as I explored his story, he actually became one of my favourite characters, just because I really enjoyed the way that he put a merchant spin on heroism and like just being noble. I thought it was really, really cool. And then Temenos, the cleric in this game, like his story's really fun because it kind of plays out like a murder mystery, which is really odd for a character of his standing. So honestly, every character that in this game is a character that I love, and the characters that I loved in the demo or the early parts of the game, I still loved, but other characters started to shine as I played through the game as well. So in terms of like progress in the game and how overwhelming or like, you know, easy and simple it is to progress through the game, I was very pleasantly surprised with Octopath Traveler, because so many JRPGs nowadays become very overwhelming by throwing just everything but the kitchen sink at you very quickly, so you just don't really know where to go. And I never came across that problem in Octopath Traveler 2. There's loads of side quests within towns and loads of things that you have to interact with using class actions, which, as I said in my preview video, you can now switch freely between day and night, which changes the class actions available to each character. And because of the way those class actions work, it again lends individuality to each of the characters, because they can only interact with each NPC in certain ways, and you can get a lot of stuff just by using class actions, so I would heavily recommend doing so. But the actual kind of progression of the story, there's always a marker to tell you where you could go next, whether it be a main chapter for the character story or a side mission that's relating to those characters, including the crossed paths stories, which are smaller, but they are still broken up into chapters. Like I was doing one for Particio and Oswald the Scholar, and that explored some really nice sort of interactions between the two characters, as well as how those two together would deal with certain situations, which is great because that's something you never saw in Octopath Traveler 1. The characters were all really separate, but in this game it definitely feels like you have way more of a full, well-rounded party, even though you're still exploring each character individually. In terms of like the minute-to-minute gameplay and just the way that everything feels within the game, it all feels very cohesive. It's very classic JRPG, and as you go through each story, you'll definitely discover that. But there were some very slight niggles that I had with the game. So battles in general are extremely frequent, and as far as I could tell, I could be very wrong on this, but I couldn't see any kind of auto battle function, which honestly we've been spoiled by modern JRPGs with speed ups and auto battles and stuff like that take all of the effort out of the kind of regular mob grinding. But while we have speed up in Octopath Traveler 2, which I'm very appreciative of, honestly I don't know how we ever lived without that. We're back in the classic PS1 days. It would have been nice to have seen like a auto battle in a similar vein to how perhaps the Pixel remasters do it with last action taken. But the battles are very frequent, and because there's no kind of auto battle function, you do find you're like having to concentrate on battle and actually kind of go through the motions very, very regularly. Although you do get an ability quite early on in the game, depending on who you choose. I'm trying really hard not to kind of like spoil anything for anybody. That does reduce the number of encounters, that makes that a lot easier. And I will also say that it would behoove you to be very careful after boss fights, because I had an encounter where I finished one of the chapter's bosses for one of the characters. It put me back outside the town, hadn't healed me, so I didn't recover all my HP and SP so that I could continue just as I were, and I got into a fight before I could get back into the town and got KO'd and game overed, because the fight that I'd had with the boss was extremely close, and therefore I had no time to heal or anything. So do be careful of that. But honestly, those are very, very minor issues in what is a fabulous game. So is this game worth your money? Absolutely. Like, I definitely recommend Octopath Traveler 2 to a wide array of people. The visuals are stunning. The music is out of this world, as always is with Square Enix games. Like, I very, very rarely find a Square Enix game that I don't think, oh my god, the music in this game is incredible. And Octopath Traveler 2 is no different. The progression is really nice. I mean, you can do things in any order, although there is a level marker on each part of the map and each story that you go through, which helps guide you in the direction that you want to go in. So if you have a particular character in mind, you can grind out and do everything for that character in one go, but then you'll probably find the other characters really easy. So I would recommend definitely splitting your attention across all 8 characters, and that's not a bad thing because all 8 of the characters have fantastic stories, fantastic characterizations. Their combat is very fluid, very different. There's enough layers added on to the foundation that Octopath Traveler 1 built that make it feel distinctive but not derivative. There's a lot to love about Octopath Traveler 2. I think that, like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to sway people who perhaps didn't get on with Octopath Traveler 1, but for any fan of a classic style JRPG, there's so much to love about this game. So yeah, that's going to be all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below whether you're excited for Octopath Traveler 2 and whether it's a game you're planning on picking up. We have so many releases coming up in the next couple of months, and I'm going to try to cover as many of them as I can. Do stay tuned because we do have videos for Theatre and Final Bar Line, because everyone knows how much I love that game. And then I'm hoping to start diversifying and adding some new games into my content as well. Like, we have some Nintendo releases coming up very soon. Resident Evil 4 is coming out very soon. There's tons of stuff to look forward to. So do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making, because it does help me out within the algorithm, which is fighting against me pretty hard for deviating from my original content. So any support that I get from you guys is massively appreciated. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.